You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Alongside Mike Chappell and Matt Adams, I'm Dave Griffiths. Appreciate you sticking with us through another week of Indianapolis Colts talk, even when it might be a little bit painful to get through it.
We never said it was going to be easy.
No, we didn't. We never said that. And that's never a promise with this team. If you've been a fan for long enough, you know that it's not going to be an easy ride from start to finish. It just seems like it's getting a little bit more difficult near the start this time around. Something happened last week none of us predicted, so no gloating or even half gloating to be had after a very surprising.
I said if they lose, shame on the Colts.
Yep.
Shame on the Colts.
Shameful loss. According to our Mike Chappell.
No mincing words on that.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. When you have a backup quarterback who has done nothing of significance in the NFL, who was just traded to another team less than 3 weeks ago, and you know what the strategy against you is going to be because it's been laid out the week before, and you can't do anything about it, shame on you. The Colts weren't good enough. They're not good enough. And their run defense, after week one, you could explain it away, and I think that we tried to provide an avenue for that.
We didn't want to let C.J. Stroud beat us.
Right.
Okay.
That makes
all
sense.
Right. Okay, I'll give you that.
Like, that makes sense. So you can believe that after week one. Can't believe it after week two. There are things that are wrong with this Colts defense, and I'm not the one that's going to tell you exactly what they are, but it certainly starts with the front. It starts with the front four. And DeForest Buckner's now not going to be there. We'll get into that a little bit later, but to not have your Pro Bowl level defensive tackle,
your best defensive player,
does not help you get better in the short term. There are going to be needed changes in the front to fix what is wrong. And I think, like I said, we can get into that a little bit later with what's going on in the future. But let's start out here with just some news around. Let's start with some news around the NFL before we dive into the Colts. And one of them that's not directly linked to the Colts, but is sort of just by proxy in the draft a couple years ago. There was that big debate between Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, and Anthony Richardson 2 years ago as to who should be the number one quarterback taken in that draft. Well, now, at least after 2 years, there's certainly a hierarchy of the three, and nobody would argue the hierarchy of the three, 1, 2, 3. And Bryce Young, who was taken number one overall by the Panthers, is firmly at the bottom and perhaps busting through the cellar door after the Panthers have decided to bench the former number one overall pick and instead start the Red Rifle himself, Andy Dalton, who turns 37 just about a month and a half from now. A stunning move, but given, Chap, the acumen of the Carolina Panthers of recent years, it can't be. It was not an impossible conclusion to come to eventually that Bryce Young would reach this point. If you like a couple of Carolina Panthers fans that are friends of mine, just their opinion of that franchise goes as much as they're fans, of it. It's not a positive one, and to see Bryce Young be benched early in his career, like you hate to see it for him. You understand why it's happening, and now the Panthers are trying to go in a different direction for the time being.
They sort of set this up last year when you fire Frank Reich, right or wrong, after was it 9 games, 11 games, whatever it was. Then you bring in a new head coach this year, Dave Canales.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say the name right?
I believe so.
I think so. That's how I've heard it.
Dave, I wasn't worried about. Canales, I wasn't sure about.
Dave.
But this is not his QB. So it's not like, Shane Steichen's going to stick with Anthony Richardson through hell and high water. He will. It's going to take an injury for Richardson not to play. If they bench Richardson for inefficiency, then again, shame on the Colts. You can't do that. This is your horse. This isn't Canales' horse. And I think what he saw in the offseason, and if I'm not mistaken, did Bryce Young not play, or did he play one series or whatever in the preseason? In 2 games, he said, no. We can't continue to go down this road. My question is, barring injury, how do you go back to him?
I don't know. Like, it's very difficult to go back after you're at a point like this, because you have to get ready every week. Like
right.
You have to prepare. Andy Dalton.
You said you're not good enough. You can't. They said that we're going with the quarterback that gives us the best chance to win.
Right.
So barring injury, and again, I've seen it thrown out there. We always overreact. Do they trade him? Do they get rid of him? I don't know how a franchise again goes away from the rookie quarterback after 2 starts this year and all the trash last year, and say that we can go forward with him. I don't know how you do that.
I don't know how you can trade him either, because
what's his value?
He's got the contract of a number 1 overall pick, and he has the
5th-year option.
Yeah, the 5th-year option, which is that's nice, but being the contract of a number 1 overall pick, you expect that guy to be your starting quarterback.
Yeah, you still need production from that spot, and you're clearly not getting it.
The thought with Canales was he did a great job with Baker Mayfield last year with Tampa Bay. I think he was with Seattle when Geno Smith was on the rise a couple years as well. The hope was that he could do the same with Bryce Young. That has clearly not been the case.
After 2 games, he decided. After 2 games,
right?
So that's in his mind. He thought, no, I don't see the long-term effect of this, and right now they're just a mess. I think you could trade. Wasn't Trey Lance a first-round pick?
Mm-hmm. Yes, he was.
Yes.
But they traded him, so you wouldn't be trading for Bryce Young, saying this guy could be our quarterback of the future. You get him, not thinking about the 5th-year option, but the 3rd and 4th year, which are still steeper, but might a change. Make a difference with him, which it'd be a total flyer. What you'd get for him is a 6. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it reminds me, not really differently, but of Houston taking David Carr in 2002
and ruining him.
They ruined him. They beat the football out of him. Now that might have been more the sacks, because he set league records on getting pummeled.
Yeah, he got punished every week.
But Bryce Young looks lost. He just looks overwhelmed. How much of that's organizational? Apparently you can defeat a player mentally, and it looks like that's what they've got. So again, we go back to Richardson. I don't see that. He doesn't look lost at all, and he will play, folks. He's going to play. Joe Flacco looks good on the sidelines. He's a big guy. He's an old guy. He ain't going to play unless there's an injury or the game gets out of hand.
It's a completely different scenario. If Anthony
100%.
Richardson goes 1 for 10 to start off this next game against Chicago, he's not getting benched. It's not happening. 1 for 10 would be really bad.
There's not a short leash. There's not a leash.
Right.
There's not. And the sooner the fan base I think the fan base, the legitimate fan base, understands. They understood this was going to be an up and down season. The start does not boost your optimism, because you haven't. Again, we were talking before we went on the air that the big plays, I just think they blind people to the need for consistency, and 49% completion percentage is that you can't play in the NFL with 49%. Can't do it. Mm-mm. Nowadays the standard is like 65%. So, but we'll get the kid has played 6 games.
Yep.
He's played 6 games. They've not helped him. I wrote about this week. They've not helped him. The entire team has not helped him. The kicker missed a 50-yard field goal when everybody's kicking 50-yard field goals. They don't play JT last week in the 4th quarter. The defense is atrocious. But again, if you hold a team, the Packers, to 16 points, you got to win. You find a way to score enough points to win. So, again, I hate to say must win and all that stuff, but this week, boy, they need to find a way to get off the schneid.
Over the last 2 seasons, 21 teams have started 0-2 is a stat that I saw. I wish I remember where I saw it, but I saw it online, that 21 teams over the last 2 seasons have started 0-2. Can you guess how many have made the playoffs?
I'll say 2.
2 is correct.
Oh, okay.
And that's basically right on par with the average back like 10 years or something like that. It's about 10% or 11% of teams make the playoffs after going 0-2.
0-3, it's probably...
Oh, it's got to fall dramatically. And the 2 teams that like the Bengals are one of them, because the Bengals keep starting 0-2 every year. It just seems like
Burrow's like 1-9 in September.
It's ridiculous. And then all of a sudden he gets locked. 2 years ago, at least, he got completely on fire. And I forget who the other team was, but it was a recent one. Obviously it was recent. The question was the last 2 years. So it was somebody last year, whoever it was. It was the Texans that started 0-2 last year, and made the playoffs because C.J. Stroud got hot and started to develop and got better as the season went along, which is what Colts fans hope for Anthony Richardson this year. Like the Colts have said over and over, he just needs to play. He needs to play. He needs to play. He needs to play. So that's what he's going to do. He's going to play.
Here we are.
And he's going to play through the ups and downs. You want there to be more ups, absolutely, but he has to play through the downs as well. And like I look back to Josh Bill's quarterback, Josh Allen. Thank you. His rookie year, there were big ups and there were big downs. And Richardson's a similar quarterback to Josh Allen.
Do we need to bring up Peyton Manning?
We can do that. Mm-hmm. How many interceptions did he throw?
14 in his first 6 games.
Is that good?
That's not good.
No, it's the opposite.
And he still has a rookie record. Was it 27 or 28?
Mm-hmm. The one record he would be more than happy anybody breaking.
Saying, I wish. And the problem is these rookies are. The bad ones don't get a chance to throw 30.
Right, because Bryce Young gets pulled or something. Right. Well, he's not a rookie, but you know what I mean.
And again, I don't, and I mentioned this the other day as well, is I'm not saying that Richardson's arc is the same as Peyton's. It's not. I'm just saying it's very rare that a rookie quarterback comes in, C.J. Stroud, and really from the start, he gets it. Justin Herbert did his rookie season when one of the coaches was Shane Steichen. And he lit it up. He might have set the rookie record for yards, 4,300, I think it was.
That sounds familiar.
I think it was like 21 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. And no, they don't. You know, they've not gotten winning down with the Chargers. Jalen Hurts, his rookie season wasn't much. He started the last 4 games, and then in his first full season, much better with Shane Steichen as either the quarterback, probably the coordinator at the time.
Yes.
So it's just when you latch onto it, and again, we keep bringing up, he's had 6 starts. He's now had, 19 starts since high school, Richardson. So he's seeing things for the first time. I don't care how much he watched from the sidelines last year.
And I don't care how much he tells us in the locker room that it's similar. It's not all that new. There's a lot of new stuff that you're dealing with. There is.
Because he said, well, a lot of the stuff's the same. No, they trick you. And sometimes he's just going to make bad decisions. The one interception to Pittman, the linebacker or whatever, he ran the route.
Yeah, that was like a levels concept.
Right.
And if he'd hit the underneath guy, you've got a nice pickup there.
Well, and there were at least 4 drop passes last week.
It's funny that the NFL says the Colts have only had 1 drop this entire year.
That's the hardest stat to find, along with like pressures. Mm-hmm. But I went to 2 or 3 sites that do this, and they had 1. I thought
for 2 games.
Jonathan Taylor dropped 2 in front of God and Vince Lombardi, for crying out loud. And we talked to Pitt the other day before everybody got there. We were just talking for the story I was doing. I said, I thought you guys had 4 or 5 drops. He said, sounds about right. Mm-hmm. He said, all I care about is the one that I had. So are we saying that from the league that was the only drop they've had?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just crazy. They're not helping him. He's not playing exceptionally well. I think the line's playing pretty well. The protection's been, people get after quarterbacks is okay. The run blocking, I guess, is okay. I mean, Taylor averaged a zillion yards last week.
Would have been nice to see him in the fourth quarter.
I understand he's not a great pass protector. In the pass game, although, his pass game, he's had
some big plays in that.
Right. And how about Saquon Barkley dropping one? So running backs do drop passes.
They're going to drop them.
But in the fourth quarter, when the Packers are in the 2 deep and all this, and they're giving you the middle, Jonathan Taylor can break a 20-yard run because the box is so light, which I just don't get. And where Shane Steichen lost me, he's a great mind. He is. But when he said one of the things that were responses about JT not playing, well, we wanted to give Trey Sermon some reps. What? That's what the preseason's for. If you want to get him his reps.
That's funny because we thought you just wanted to win the game. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and that's why I didn't agree with that. 3rd and 1 coming out of the quarter, and you've got JT on the bench. You paid this kid buku bucks, $42 million to be the guy, and they always talk about. Well, then the next day we talked to Jim Bob, and it was, man, we just, he kept bringing up, having Richardson and Taylor in there together on what they do, and you've got your guy over the last 22 snaps, whatever it was, standing there next to you. I mentioned in one of my stories he was a healthy scratch, which he was. So I don't get it. It's early. Everybody's out of sorts as far as how to run things offensively, but it's got to get fixed real quick.
Did you talk to Jonathan Taylor in the locker room today? Were you there?
No.
Okay, you couldn't make it?
Our great guy, Brett Bensley.
Yeah, I couldn't make it either, so
he
unfortunately.
He sent me the recording. I listened to it, and it's word salad.
That's what Jonathan Taylor does.
It's
is.
classic JT.
You know, when they come up about not playing in the fourth quarter, which came up again today as well, you know, you go with what the coaches want, and we're trying to do this, that, and the other, and well, are you on the bench because of pass protection? Well, that's something I still need to work on. There's nothing really there to advance the story. And when you're, as you said, Buckner being out, that's their best defensive player.
Right.
With all due respect to Kenny Moore, he is.
And Zaire.
And Zaire, who's had a very rough two games.
He very much took a lot of responsibility himself, by the way, on Wednesday.
In the defense.
As he should.
Well, I mentioned when I was doing the story for yesterday, they've had 19 or 15 missed tackles. 15. They had 9 against the Packers. I mean, that's 9 plays where, you know, maybe 2 guys on a play, but that's not going to work. But then on offense, you've got JT, who is your best offensive player. He just is. Mm-hmm. You've got 2 guys that keep people up at night, and that's Taylor and Richardson. And when for 25% of the game he's not out there, you think the Packers were upset that Taylor didn't play? No, they loved it.
I think they love to see him on the bench on 3rd and 1 coming out of the
we can argue with the play all you want, but the fact that, you know, like everyone was talking about 4th and 1 last year against Houston, and it's Goodson.
Yep.
You know, was Taylor banged up? Maybe, probably. Mm-hmm. But when he's healthy, he needs to be out there 70-75% of the plays, which normally is how it is when he plays.
We talked about this last week right here on the podcast, that harkening back to last year in Goodson, and I compared it to the 4th down play at the beginning of game 1 this year, like Anthony Richardson throwing to A.D. Mitchell instead of having Jonathan Taylor out there running the ball, doing any type of run action. Like Shane Steichen has these plays that I'm sure he loves and they're schemed beautifully, but when your best players are not on the field, it's putting you at a disadvantage. And the smartest players, the smartest coaches find ways to get their best players involved in their smart schemes. So you could have all the schemes and all the ideas you want on offense. The players, the best guys need to be involved. Like I said, when the Eagles have 4th and 1, first of all, they just do Jalen Hurts up the middle, like no one else has been able to figure out with the tush push. But when they have 4th and short, like they go to A.J. Brown if they're going to throw it, or Devontae Smith, like stars. They don't throw it to their second tight end.
Because nobody was expecting us to throw the ball to Drew Ogletree.
Like, yeah. Well, there's a reason they're not expecting that. You know, when the Chiefs have 4th and short, they rotate Patrick Mahomes out, and if he has an open seam to throw to Travis Kelce, that's who he goes to. Like you have to do this. It seems so basic, and so it's so frustrating for Colts fans. I completely understand it, to see guys like Trey Sermon in the backfield getting an option pitch on 3rd and 1.
Everybody was asking on Twitter, which Twitter's a bad place to be, in that 4th quarter, well, was Jonathan Taylor hurt?
Right.
Did he say something to a coach to get cockeyed with the coaches? No, he just they didn't want him out there for whatever reason.
They did not want Jonathan Taylor on the field.
Period.
That's it.
You can disguise it any way you want it, but they would rather have one of the lesser players out there. Yes, you're throwing the ball. I understand that, but makes no sense.
There are 167 nominees for the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2025. Of course, a couple Colts retaining that honor from the year before, Robert Mathis and Reggie Wayne, 2 nominees. Adding this year, in his first season of eligibility, kicker Adam Vinatieri joins that group. Plenty of others from the Super Bowl 41 team include Antoine Bethea, Bob Sanders, Jeff Saturday.
Antoine Bethea was a good player.
He was a darn good player. When you lose someone, you often realize just how good they were.
Well, then they replaced him with LaRon Landry. So
it even becomes further under the microscope. Also, our venerable Matt Adams has written on our sheet here, the idiot kicker category, we have Mike Vanderjagt and Pat McAfee as well among these 167 nominees.
So that's 2 idiot kickers.
There's one idiot.
Comparable. But one was definitely called an idiot kicker.
Yes.
And,
by Peyton Manning.
And the other one did some idiotic.
Liquored up.
Yeah,
idiot
Yeah,
kicker.
absolutely. Yeah, and the other one was a punter, not necessarily a kicker, who did some idiotic things from time to time.
I think Pat would be the first one to admit that, and he's taken that aspect of his personality and turned it into something tremendous.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Amazing.
His story is like it deserves its own 30 for 30 for sure, Pat. And who knows, maybe we'll get something like that one day. But anyway,
one thing just to explain the 167 nominees. There are names on there that most of them, these guys are not Hall of Fame players.
Correct.
They're not. But the way
like
it
Mike
works,
Vanderjagt, for example. Sorry.
If you insist on putting his name out there again, go right ahead. But you're right.
When's he getting the Ring of Honor?
Right. But the way it works, again, I'm on the selection committee with the Hall of Fame. Is we get the preliminary list, and they say, hey, if somebody's missing, throw a name. I could put Ryan Lilja, who was a very fine player, but that's the extent. You can name anybody you want, and they get thrown on there. And then the way it's going to work from here is, for the first time, which I'm not really sure why we did it, meaning the Hall of Fame, is there's a I can't remember what they called it, a committee of however many are going to pair the 167 to 50, and then the 50 selectors. Then we get the list of 50, and then we pare it down to 25, and then we pare it down to 15.
So there's like an extra cut round?
Yeah, which I don't know why they did that. But it's not people on the selection committee. It's other football folks that'll take the list of 167 and knock it down. But most of these guys will get weaned out. A lot of the Colts will get weaned out. But it'll come down, when it really gets to be dicey is when you get to 25, which Robert Mathis has made the 25, I think, his last 2 or 3 years and no further. And Reggie, he's made the final 15 in each of his first 5 years. Vinatieri.
That's quite remarkable that you make the final 15 5 years in a row
and not
get selected.
Right.
And I don't say this to take anything away from you, Chap, as the one who presents him. I say this just to stoke your frustration
are
fires.
Wearing my butt out
yes.
on how do I present something different. But there have been guys that have been in there longer. Edge may have gone in his 6th year, maybe 5. John Lynch waited a while. Mm-hmm. So it's the old thing about keep knocking the door down. But the first year eligibles, Eli Manning, that's going to be a fun debate.
Yeah.
I mean,
it will.
He's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Is he a Hall of Famer?
Chap says no.
Well, I'll have a no vote. But then you got Adam Vinatieri, which I think he's a guy you almost stand up and say his name and sit down.
He has scored more points than anyone in NFL history in a game where scoring points is the point of the game.
And he won 2 Super Bowls with his last kicks.
Yes.
And more importantly, in my mind, he launched New England's dynasty in the tuck game when it was a blizzard, and he kicked like a 45-yarder to send it into overtime, and then he won like a 23-yarder.
Right.
But he calls them his 2 best kicks.
Well, the conditions, I mean,
unbelievable,
impossible kicking conditions.
Right.
And he got him in.
And by the way, he's got the league record for the longest consecutive streak from field goals is 44. It was Vinny when he was like 40. And he broke the record of Vanderjagt. So Vanderjagt, he's an easy foil now, but he was a
really good kicker when he was.
He was a really good kicker until he wasn't.
Right.
No, we'll see in the next couple of months how this thing goes. But hopefully, I think Reggie, I think Vinny make the final 15. And then it's a dogfight.
And Bob still has a hill to climb, even though he's the all-time Mathis is who I'm talking about. Sorry, yes. Even the all-time leading strip sack guy in the NFL, like 48 forced fumbles or 46 forced fumbles.
Terrell Suggs is eligible this year. Jared Allen's got like
Still
150 sacks.
Yeah.
He was PO'd last year that Freeney got in.
I understand him being PO'd.
I get that.
Yeah.
But it's, again, as I always say when people say, well, my guy should have got in. Well, who do you want to leave off? Nobody. No. You get 5. And again, you get 5 in the modern era guys. 5.
Right.
Maximum. So it's tough.
Yes. So we will see what happens as that process unfolds, but at least the first step of the process has been unveiled.
You gotta be on the list to make the to advance on the list. So at least they've got that.
Chap, is this Donnell Thompson?
Yeah, that was too bad. There was football before Peyton Manning.
Right. He was part of the team that moved from Baltimore to Indianapolis in 1984. Defensive end on that team. He passes away at 65 years old. Spent his entire NFL career with the Colts. Retired back in 1992. Owned some restaurant franchises in the area. The North Carolina native was a Lawrence Taylor teammate back at UNC. But a first-round pick with the Colts, the Baltimore Colts in '81. But just one of the early names for the old-timers who hopefully know how a podcast works and are listening to us now who remember his name. But if you don't remember the name, it was a significant name for a time in Baltimore Colts history for sure.
Yeah, again, like I say, people...
And Colts history
we just
in general.
glossed over the 80s and all, but he was... I'm trying to think who he would be now. He's not Buck. But he was just a stud defensive end, and always there. Now there was one time when he got cross-eyed with management and got in a contract dispute. But great player, very good player. Rick Venturi has talked really well about him because Rick was involved with the defense back then. So you hate to see that. What was he again in the 60s?
65, yeah.
You hate to see that. I don't know that he'd had any physical problems. That some players do, but he was very successful, like you said, in with the fast food chains and all that. So, prayers out to the family.
And he was part of, that 87 team that made the playoffs for the first time for the Colts. So just throwing that in there. My kind of Colts knowledge base starts with the Jim Harbaugh era in 95. So he was a little bit before my time, but wanted to look it up and at least mention it because he was important to the franchise when it came here.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Let's turn our attention toward the future as the Colts host the Chicago Bears this weekend at Lucas Oil Stadium. 1 p.m. kickoff broadcast. It is on CBS 4 in Indy. Yes. If you're in Central Indiana, so check it out there. And of course, our Blue Zone pregame show at 11:30 a.m. On Sunday morning, leading into the NFL Today there on CBS 4. But coming out of the Green Bay game and entering the Chicago game, Chap, I think your observation earlier, are the Bears better? Or is the Bears better with Caleb Williams as quarterback, or is the Packers team with Malik Willis better? I think that's a good question because Caleb Williams is young and dynamic, and that Bears offensive line is terrible. He has some weapons around him at the wide receiver position when they're healthy. And the Packers had a heck of a run game, as we saw, and Malik Willis didn't have to do a whole lot. And the Bears have a heck of a defense that won them their first game of the season. So it's
they have a pick six and a block punt for a touchdown.
I think so.
So I would lean toward the Bears being the better team from what I have seen so far this year, because it's not just one thing that they do, but it turns out the one thing that the Packers did, run the ball really well, was what the Colts are absolutely weakest at least for the first half and maybe into the third quarter. Zaire Franklin mentioned in the locker room something about turning things around in the second half, and I kind of agree with that. Statistically, they certainly did. I don't know how much they
gave up 231 in the first half. Was that what it was?
It was something ludicrous. It was like 130 in the first two drives.
164 in the first quarter.
Yeah. Wow. Just wow. But
so you got it fixed. Well,
and the Packer defense also shut down the Colts, except for, then the Colts shut down themselves by keeping Jonathan Taylor on the bench. He was the only thing
12 for
going well.
Is that what it was?
12 carries for more than 100 yards. Yes, he was averaging
8 and a half, 8
yards per carry,
something like that.
Yeah, let's go away from him.
Not good enough to be on the field.
Can't pick
quarter.
up a 3rd and 1.
Obviously, can't be on the field for the 3rd and 1 play.
Could have picked up a 3rd and 17, I guess, with a couple of his carries.
Yeah, but I was stunned that they were down only 10-0 at halftime. So the defense kind of held at times when allowed a field goal here and there, but
the one forced fumble at the goal line. I mean,
and it never felt like they were in the game, even though they had a Hail Mary at the end to win the game, for crying out loud. Like it would have been stunning for that to happen. That it was even a possibility for that to happen.
That's where a team can say, well, it was a one possession game and we had the ball at the end of the game. Well, yeah, but you like you said, you never felt like they were in it.
It always felt like Green Bay was up by 3 or 4 touchdowns in that game. No matter what stage of the game you were in that first half.
It's that picture of a tree with a cat, and it's just hanging on a limb because you're just waiting for it to fall, and that's what it felt like in that game.
I think, like, being just a one-score game, and like I think you learn a couple things about what it takes to win in the NFL. That it's going to be close most of the time, first of all. So you need to make the plays at the most important times. Like, you need to convert third downs or fourth downs when they're your opportunity to do so. You need to turn field goals into touchdowns. You need takeaways at the proper times. We mention it all the time, and coaches talk about it, and it becomes cliche to say so. But instances like this just make it ring true. That we can talk about yards gained and points scored, or yards allowed and points allowed a lot. But there is a specific avenue to getting toward those ultimate goals, and it comes to playing complementary football. It comes to playing clutch football at the right time. Situational football is the word I was looking for. Thank you.
They're like 7 and 23 on 3rd and 4th down. Their first conversion last week was fourth quarter. I think it was a throw to Alec Pierce. They were like 0 for 7. All of this contributes to the 40-20 time of possession, or 20-40 if you want to go that way. It's so many coaches will say, well, it's never one play. It's, we had 60 offensive plays. No, it's generally 3 or 4 plays. It just is. Go back against Houston again in last season. It was 1 or 2 plays. The first play of the game, 75 yards, and 4th and 1, they convert, you don't convert. It's it's a collective game. It is. I understand it. But the really good teams find a way to make 3 or 4 more plays than you do. And it comes down to missing a field goal, hitting a field goal, being in position. So it's and again, everything is exacerbated when you've got a young quarterback. You have got to give a young quarterback a chance to fail. You just do. I remember early in Peyton's career, and he would talk about it, is he didn't think that – he thought he had to force 3rd down. Because to him, a punt was a bad thing, because you were going to come back on the field – down 3 or 7 points more, because you didn't trust everybody else. And that's where they can't get with Richardson. He can't force things to where, boy, if I don't do this, our defense, isn't doing what they need to do. It's got to start soon. This thing can get out of control. It's the Bears, and then it's
Steelers,
Pittsburgh, and they're going to beat you up.
Yeah, these are 2 really good defenses you're facing these next 2 weeks. You're glad to have them at home, big time.
And then where do you go week 5?
Where do you go week 5, Chad?
You go to the dark hole.
I go to Jacksonville.
We send Dave out to Jacksonville.
So, barring some strange thing, they're going to lose week 5. So you've got to get this thing righted. And again, I don't think people should be upset that they're 0-2. Most predictions, I think, had the Colts 0-2.
Yes.
They did.
Because you're facing C.J. Stroud week 1 and
Jordan
Love.
Yes.
Now, you blew a great chance. I don't think that they came that close to beating Houston. I just Houston's a better team. They blew one last week, but it's the manner in which they've gotten 0-2 is alarming. Defense, if you can't depend on your run defense, what do you got?
Yeah, and 200 yards a game, and that's very uncharacteristic of what we've seen.
3 times, I think it is, in franchise history, so in Indy history, 200 yards in back-to-back games. You can't. What was it Gus Bradley says? You earn the right to rush your quarterback by stopping the run. Well, so far they've not earned much of anything.
Right.
So it's not that they're 0-2; it's how they've got there. And normally you'd say, but we can do this. Until they can give you the but answer, it's just hard, and it can get out of hand. If you can't beat Malik Willis, if you can't beat Caleb Williams, and then what's going to be Justin Fields, week 4 probably, which as a thrower, he doesn't strike fear into you. Now, nope. he may run for 100 yards on you, but then you get more into the teeth of the schedule. So this is, I always say the old must win. I go back to the old Marv Levy, the only must-win was World War II. Well, then there's got to be another phrase for it. You better win.
The Dan Patrick Show is they call them this early in the season must-ish wins.
There you go. There you go.
Is that a must-ish win?
Yeah, must-ish win.
So these are must-ish wins for the Colts for sure.
You got a lot of veterans on this team, but you got a lot of young players, and you got a young quarterback, and you can learn from losses. Corrective criticism, but at some point you need reinforcement that what we're doing, there's a reason for it, and you're going and the reason for it is a win on Sunday, and we've been around when seasons have gotten out of control, and it's hard to stop it when the negative, because you're going to have injuries. We'll see how it goes this week, but Julian Blackmon sounds like he's back, but Buck's not going to play for at least a month. Maybe 6 games. It's a high ankle sprain. That's 4 to 6 weeks.
Exactly. That's what Josh Downs had, wasn't it?
And, and he's hopefully back this week. But, Juju Brents is out for, goodness, maybe the season. We'll see. But injuries happen. So they've got to get this thing stopped in a hurry.
I think the addition of Josh Downs back to the lineup can be a very, very big deal. It can be a huge deal because what the Colts have clearly lacked on offense has been any semblance of an intermediate passing game. In Game 1, they had the deep passing game going. Game 2, they had the run game going. They have not shown at any point in either of these first 2 games that they can be a team that moves the chains with the intermediate passing game.
I thought Colin Granson might be that guy. And it hasn't happened.
Yeah, that hasn't materialized.
Not at all. It is not in these first 2 weeks, for sure. So Josh Downs was having as good a training camp as anybody on this Colts roster.
He and Alec Pierce. Yes, but you're right.
Offense and defense. Like, there was no one who was better than him, is what I'm saying. Were some at his level, perhaps. Right. But Josh Downs was by far. Like, he was not behind anybody. And so I'm anxious to see what he can contribute. He was saying to us, Chap, in the locker room on Wednesday, it sounded like it was Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard's decision to keep him out of this game last week. Yes.
We talked to him on last Wednesday, and it was as low-key as he's been. Body language and the tone of his voice, and we thought, man, he didn't sound like he's... I think he knew then Wednesday, Thursday, at some point that you're not there practicing. Yeah. You're not going to play.
Because he was limited on Wednesday, limited Thursday, full on Friday.
Which normally is a sign you're going to play.
Right.
But I think they were very, very conscious about, we want to make sure.
They probably listened to the Colts Blue Zone podcast.
That's right.
And heard us talking about how it was very important that we make sure we get Downs back 100% healthy.
So for 15 games instead of 16 games where for half the season you're worried about the ankle, he'll make a world of difference. He will. The quarterback and he and Richardson have a connection. They were strong from training camp on last year. That's not happened with A.D. Mitchell. He's been a disappointment through 2 games.
He's gotten a lot of targets, and there's just not much to show for it.
Right, and he just flat dropped a third. That's why I say they've got one drop.
Keep coming back to the drop.
That's not a drop?
It hit him. I mean, it hit him in the breadbasket when these guys need to catch with their hands. Reggie needs to get, but that okay, that's the one. Well, really? But that was 3rd and 8 or something, and it's just that followed Pittman's drop, so that's 2 right there.
Yeah, I think Granson dropped one.
JT dropped a couple. 2. I mean, I don't get it.
It's not a drop, but Pierce lost his footing out of the break.
20 or 30 yards.
Yeah, that was going to be a really nice completion at a key moment in the game.
So that could have been one of those where, again, how you do the stats, Richardson's day could have been a ton better.
Yep.
And again,
but it wasn't.
He threw 3 interceptions to Hail Murray, but it wasn't. This is where we are. So, but I think Downs can do a lot. They need to have that guy who leaks out, and he's going to win. If you got a linebacker on him, he's going to win.
Yeah.
And if you got a nickel on him, he still has a good chance of getting it in stride and if at the very least do the Jack Doyle 7.9 yards. But with Downs, he can break it and go for 30.
It can go. Yeah.
Yes. So that's huge. And, then you've got Pierce off to the great start. You get Michael Pittman off. It was 7 catches for 51 yards or whatever it is.
Give him a big contract this offseason to not be doing so much right now.
In talking to him yesterday, he's saying all the right things. He's a captain. A couple more games like this, and I want to see how he if they're losing. I want to see how he responds because he's a guy that is I can help, I can do more, I can do better.
Right.
So we'll see how this pans out. That's what I say. Things can get a whole lot worse, and the way it gets better is you win 3-0. I don't care how it is, and you're 1-2.
Yeah, I earlier this week tweeted out some of the Shane Steichen press conference from Wednesday talking about the continued development of Anthony Richardson, and with it, I submitted a couple stats along with it as like 50% completion percentage, this many yards, 3 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. And I got a couple responses from people trying to explain away his interceptions. And I get it. Like, I get that Kylan Granson slipped and that might not have been an interception. I get
He's
that
thrown 2
Pierce
that were just
like
bad decisions.
Yeah, I'm like, I get it, but a couple of bad decisions. And you still, like, you are what you are. And you need to realize that if you're a fan of this team. Like, he's thrown 4 interceptions.
Linebacker flat dropped one.
Yeah, that too.
That's
like,
true.
there could have been others like
and
that.
he threw a couple balls into the danger zone against Houston that didn't get picked.
Like, Richardson he needs a lot more work. Like, he needs to develop. Could you say, oh, some of those interceptions? Oh, well, of course you can. That's the case with every quarterback in the league. But this is what he is right now. And this is what the Colts defense is. It's a bad rush defense right now. You can't say anything else about it. You can say, well, we still got these guys that were on part of last year as a good rush defense. I think they could pull it together. Well, they haven't. This is what they are. They're a bad defense twice in a row.
Going forward without your best player.
Exactly. It is like you have to do better. Yes. Do you think you could do better? Sure. But you have to realize where you are first. And any type of obfuscation of where you are will inhibit you from getting to where you're supposed to be. And I think, like, is it too early in the season for a come to Jesus moment? Probably. But it still needs some refreshing honesty in that room for guys to realize that a whole lot of work needs to be done if you want to turn things around at this point in the year.
If the Bears go off for 160, we got a problem.
Because their offensive line has not been good.
It's not good. They've not had successful running games so far.
The running backs, I think, are averaging like 1.9.
Yeah,
the running backs.
It's really bad.
DeAndre Swift is not a terrible running back.
No.
He's got some skill. So, like, if he gets free, if he gets open, he can do some damage.
The stats say otherwise so far this season.
Exactly.
And that's not an accurate reflection of his ability.
Right. Like, and again, I'll give them the same treatment I give the Colts. They are what they are right now. They're a team that can't protect the quarterback or open run lanes. Do you think they have potential? Sure, but they need to have a moment to say, hey, let's come together. This Colts team right here, like,
they have to be looking forward to this.
Exactly. Let's get things started with
sweet
with our
release.
Guys.
You know,
yeah, off tackle, off tackle. Get
that ball on the edge, man.
Like, you see
the
where
Colts can't stop
you
it.
see where Grover Stewart is and run somewhere else, because like right now he's probably the guy that you're really worried about stopping the run.
And that's an important thing is how do the Colts adjust moving forward without Buck?
Yep.
They have not played. Now we've not seen a lot without Buck because he's missed. He's missed one game in his career with an injury, and that was as a rookie. And he missed the COVID game in 2020. Or was it 21? One of those years.
I guess I was thinking 2020, but it might.
I think you're right. I think it was 20. You're right. It was 20.
Year.
Yes, it was
against
20.
Houston against Tennessee, and Tennessee ran up about 45 points on it. And they had Danico Autry and other guys out. But how do you compensate for your best front seven player being gone? What they've done, the rotation thing drives me. We're on. I can't.
Batty.
There we go. There was another word to put with it, but I didn't go there.
Batty.
But playing 10 guys is ridiculous. It just is. Cut it down to 8. And what I wish they would do is instead of putting Taven Bryan in place of Buck, put Dio in there. He's a large body. I'm going to go back and look. I thought when they drafted him, they thought he had 3 technique traits.
Go back to those shots. Yeah, those quotes. We'll see.
So I just, in Raekwon Davis, I realized he missed training camp with his blood pressure, but he's been back for a month, 3 weeks, so he should be giving them some good minutes, and they really haven't got that. So I just. This thing about the 10-man rotation, it's kind of like in the NBA. If you have a 10-man rotation, what are you doing? 4 guys, 5 guys are backups for a reason, and 2 or 3 of them are number 3 for a reason. So I just think they need to shorten the rotation, and they need to give Dio, last name
Dio Odangbo.
See, whenever I see him in the
locker, you know how to spell it though, don't you?
That's all I need.
Yeah,
I make sure my computer doesn't spell check it to something.
Right.
I don't know what it would go to, but I don't think he played a lot against Green Bay, and I just think he needs to be out there. And if it doesn't work, fine. But Taven Bryant has not worked as a run stopper, and Addy's not really worked.
As a run stopper. Aditamiwa Adibare.
See, again, I can spell it. I'm getting where I can spell it
Just
without
call him
looking.
Tommy.
Tommy,
Yeah,
correct.
exactly,
Tommy.
which is great, Tommy.
So I think they're both pretty good against getting penetration and getting pressure. Not so much the run.
Is that what you need right now?
No. Right.
Yeah.
No. Right. So, and you're going to accept the fact that probably Caleb Williams is going to get loose a couple times.
Mm-hmm. He just is. It's just going to happen.
Right. But don't let the running backs who have been totally ineffective do something. And other teams have video, so when they see video where the Colts can't stop the run, then you run it until they prove they can stop the run. I mean, this is football 101, and I think the Colts again, they're fortunate that they're not facing a quarterback who generally is going to hurt them from the pocket, because that's not what these guys are. But until you get the run game fixed, you haven't got a chance.
Yeah, this is a great game. I think that the Bears have to be looking at this as a great opportunity, because for Caleb Williams, you think you're not going to ask him to do too much in this game. You're going to say let's pound them, let's run the ball, and if they stop us, well then that's on us, and then we'll readjust later.
But they're going to try quarter and a half.
Exactly.
You just stick with it.
Yeah. Even if they go down, even if the Colts somehow get up 14-0, like I don't think they're going to abandon the run very early.
I don't think they will either.
They shouldn't, at least. Well, but we'll see what happens. As the Bears' defense has given up only 18 points per game. That's sixth in the NFL in this young season. They're playing pretty well.
And they keep scoring games. That's why.
They do.
That's why Vinatieri is the most points in league history.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got to bring that up to your colleagues there, chap. Colts are 19th in the NFL, allowing 22.5 points per game.
That's an improvement over 28 and 28 the last couple of years.
It is, for sure. The Bears are 8th in yards allowed. Colts are 31st, down at 400, and 237 of those are rushing yards per game, which, as you would imagine, is dead last in the NFL by a significant margin.
I think Carolina's second with 199, I think it is, a game.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's Carolina.
Bears ahead on the turnover margin this season. They're +1, forcing 4 turnovers. The Colts are -3. They only have one takeaway themselves on defense. That was the Zaire Franklin strip last week that they recovered. But no interceptions by the defense. But the secondary hasn't been the problem for the Colts. So if you'd asked me before the season after 2 weeks, hey, how's the secondary? That's not the problem. So, yeah, you would have said, what is the problem? Hold on a second.
What's wrong?
Who is the NFL's leading tackler?
By, again, a significant margin, by like 5 tackles.
Nick Cross.
That's right.
By like 5. Yeah, it's by 5.
5. Nick Cross.
Great for Nick Cross. I don't want my safety to be my leading tackler.
You don't want him getting 15 tackles a game.
No.
And they're not on pass defenses where you're pulling a guy down.
No. It's because guys are running through the linebackers around the edge and they're getting downfield.
The first game, the top 2 tackles were Cross and Julian Blackman.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Not a good thing.
The good thing the Colts defense has going for them, if they want to right the ship, looking at the Bears offense, is it's been putrid this year. They are second worst in the NFL. Only the Carolina Panthers, barely an NFL team themselves, are worse at 32nd. The Colts are 14th.
Texas could not beat Carolina. Can we just this college
No,
stuff?
No. I'm not saying that for sure. But they are an NFL team.
Arch Manning gets his first start this week.
Arch,
I'm
let's
watch
go.
it. I think
must-see TV.
Right.
Arch Manning. He did pretty well when he came in last week when Quinn Ewers got hurt, let me tell you. And he looks like Archie running around out there.
People say, well, the Mannings don't run the ball.
Grandpa
did.
So many. Let me bang the table here. I would do that, but hold on. Those are 22-year-old kids running Twitter accounts for SI or for Pro Football Focus or for College Football on Fox who have no appreciation for the history of the NFL, chap. You got me going this week on this.
Archie was a runner. Now, sometimes he ran for his life.
He did.
Archie
but
was
he could
good
run. Yes.
He was a mobile dude, man.
Yes. Not saying that those Saints teams he was part of were any good, but he was.
Also, this isn't Eli's kid.
No.
It's Cooper's kid. And Cooper, I tell you, until he had the back situation, he was borderline NFL quality receiver.
Cooper.
He had really good speed.
Cooper.
Let's see. In 2 games, Caleb Williams is completing 56% of his passes, 267 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's been sacked 9 times, only averaging 4 yards per attempt. They've had no semblance of a threat in the deep passing game themselves.
So the Colts can give up the first career passing touchdown 2 weeks in a row.
Williams. How about that? To Malik Willis and to Caleb. That's power positive thinking for you, chap.
There's always something.
Yeah, I've given Anthony Richardson stats already. 7.8 yards per attempt is a whole lot better, and that's right around the range that at least Frank Reich, when he was here, talked about what you like to see from your quarterback for 7.8 yards per attempt in the passing game. The Bears won their Week 1 game. They did not score a single offensive touchdown. So they have that ability. Like we said, they're a dangerous defense and special teams team. And like, if we know anything about a Matt Eberflus defense, which we saw here for several years here, certainly to the credit of Darius Leonard in his prime, but they're gonna give up some yards, but they're gonna take the ball away. Like, it's gonna happen probably at some point in this game. They're gonna get a turnover because they always seem to, and they have players on that side of the ball on defense that are really good players in Chicago. So you got to limit those opportunities. You can't give them up at the worst possible times, and hopefully you don't give any of them up. But Matt Eberflus, even though Colts fans certainly had their problems with him over the years, like, he's an NFL coach for a reason, because what he has done has succeeded in some different places. So we'll see how the Colts offense is able to fare against this defense that has been so far one of the best in the league. So let's wrap things up with our predictions, and then we'll get to it. Colts Bears this weekend inside Lucas Oil Stadium, 1 p.m. On CBS4. It's Colts are 1-point favorites. The over/under is 43.5. I'm going to go with I think the Colts win. I'm going to go kind of low scoring. I think 20-16 ball game with an Indianapolis victory. So Matt, what do you have to say?
I would say I'm going to go against the Colts this week. I'm going to say 2017 Chicago.
You never do that.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I've got 16-10 Colts. Because I don't want to see an 0-3 team.
Well, we appreciate you listening to this week's Colts Blue Zone podcast, and we'll see what happens this week, see if the Colts can get a victory at Lucas Oil Stadium, their first of the year. We'll see you next week.